It could be separate labels or peel-off labels on an invoice or a packing list, so you don't have to go out to any shipping software at all. And then finally, we can help you learn weights. So especially for single items that go in their own box, we know what the weights are because we've been shipping them, so we can update this for you. And the goal is to automate as much as possible so you don't have to weigh boxes unless you have to. If you have any extra charges that you want to push to your shipping software, maybe it's a heavy or a large item, we can do that. We can track the cost of shipping that item, which is useful for reporting and that sort of thing. Remember, we're getting the total cost at the order level for comparing to your shipping, but this is product level for that purpose. We can calculate and add insurance when you key an order. We can push over hazmat codes. If you have any items like that, we'll push that to your shipping software. We can indicate an item ships in its own box. And if it does, the shipping software will know to pack it separately. We can also put in dimensional weight here. And if we have your factors, we can calculate dimensional weight for you. So if you remember order entry when we're picking the best ship method, that's one of the things we'll consider and tell you which method to use or automatically change the method to that. Stock levels is where you keep track of quantities. If an item, you can mark it as non-inventory. If it's an item you don't worry about, maybe it's something you have thousands of, or maybe it's not a real item like a discount or a message. Marking it non-inventory just means you have an endless supply. You can discontinue an item. If you do that, you usually want to say do not allow back orders, so when this gets down to 0, you won't keep trying to sell it. However, we do substitutions as well. So if this is out of stock or gone forever, you can substitute it with something else in your inventory. If that's not available, something else, up to 3. You can either prompt the operator or not when they're keying an order. It's useful to prompt them if it's a similar item and they need to recommend it to the customer, and to not prompt them if it's just an internal order, a product number change they don't need to know about. In addition to being useful during order entry, this is also useful for products that folks order on the web, on your various channels. If an order comes in and an item's out of stock, and it showed on the web it was available, but it turns out to be out of stock, we can automatically generate an email to the customer that says, hey, you ordered this particular product, it's out of stock, we'll have it back in stock on this date. Or you can have this one now. Which would you prefer? So it's a proactive way to let customers know immediately what their options are so they're not upset that something's back ordered. Okay, let's take those off and then we'll talk about quantities. You can have a quantity in stock, like 5, or you can use our multiple locations feature, which most folks do. And for that, within locations, you can have as many different locations as you like. Physical locations like warehouses and bin numbers. You set these up again in the setup button. So maybe warehouse 3 bin 10 has 15 in stock, and you want to pull from that first. Another location could be a drop shipper like we have here. In this case, we're just going to assume they have an endless supply, so they're marked non-inventory, but you can uncheck that. And you can either put in a number here, maybe fudge a number, or we can read in feeds. Maybe they give you a daily or an hourly feed. And we can take that number and dumb it down too if you like. So if a vendor's, is a vendor for multiple people and they have 50, maybe you just want to show 10. And then mark it drop ship. And if you remember order entry, those will get marked with a D, so we know they're drop ship, and we can create drop ship POs. You can either do it manually or it can be automated. So again, you can have as many in here as you like. They can have it'll automatically pick up the lot numbers and expiration dates that we take at receive inventory, which I'll show you later. But we'll know what lot number it's sold under and what the expiration date is. Whenever you're finished here, whatever your total is of these will roll up into the total available in stock. And that's going to be the default number we use for your listings, etc. But we'll cover that when we get to those in a little bit. Extra fields are just that. There's a bin number if you don't want to use the number in the multiple locations field. Either one or both of those can show up on pick list, packing list, etc. so your folks know where to pick from. There's 5 custom fields. You can rename these in preferences to whatever you like, so they make sense for your type of business. The first 4 are not searchable, but they do show up during a product search at order entry. So it can show specific information to your reps so they can answer questions, etc., without having to open up a separate screen. If you sell books, we have ISBNs. You can store up to 3 UPC codes for a product. Channergy supports barcoding all throughout the system. You can, if you see a UPC code, or if you make your own product number barcodes, which you can do from receive inventory, so you can make labels. or if the product supplier puts a barcode on there. It doesn't matter which one you scan, we're always going to resolve it back to the Channergy product number. So you typically use that like if you're taking orders from folks that walk in, if you have retail or over the counter, when you're receiving merchandise from vendors, when you're packing items into boxes at fulfillments, etc. That's the most common places. These are redundant. We have them on the supplier screen. If you sell out of the country, we do things like duty percent, preferred currency, etc. You can make items commission or royalty items, and we can calculate and add that for you. If you remember, you can have commissionable folks specified at the customer and the order level. You can have a preferred ship method for a product too, so maybe this always goes UPS ground. Again, at order, if you remember, we can calculate shipping methods. This would be one of the things that we'd look at. That product got added to the order, defaulted it to UPS ground. That's probably the way you want it to go, but we could still override it if you want, or that could be the override. It's up to you. And there's other things you can do. Units of measure would be how this is typically sold, case, each, etc. Backorder messages would be what customers see when this is out of stock. If you're pushing up images to particular channels, then sometimes they want a URL. This is where that would be stored. And I won't save my changes. If you sell automobile parts, etc., you need to track VIN numbers, we can do that, and retrieve and track titles and give it to customers. You can serialize inventory. Just mark it as a serialized item. And then when you sell the item, you can collect the serial number as you pack it, or you can pull it from a cage if it's a pre-built group that we did that you do at receive inventory. So everybody's a little bit different. We'll try to touch on that a little bit later. But the most common way is simply when you fulfill it to scan or key in the serial number. At that point, you know what went out to the customer, and if they send it back for return or exchange, you can verify it's the same one you sent out. You can make any product a gift certificate. And you can build a prefix, a suffix, and a random code length and type. And what that means is when you sell that product, maybe you call it gift certificate, for whatever value, it will automatically create the code. Channergy will keep track of that code when it's been redeemed in part or in full. With certain channels, too, we can coordinate promo codes so that we know that they used it on the channel and could deduct it from the gift certificate that you have stored in Channergy. You can also make any item a subscription item. And that means that maybe they buy it, pay for it once a year, and they get a weekly subscription or a monthly, etc. It's a little bit different than a recurring order, which we can also create, which would be an order that comes out, say, every month. Maybe it's the same as last time, a consumable, or maybe it's a book of the month or a cigar of the month. Whereas a subscription is something you renew every year or every period. Subscriptions can also do things like have emails that remind them, hey, it's time to renew. Hey, you missed the renewal. Here's one more. Okay, you're canceled, etc. So we help you set that up when we implement the program for you. Now, you can make any item a pre-order item. So if you want to, maybe you sell DVDs before they come out, for example. And then this is that company override. We saw order entry, so maybe this comes out of core. So when you add this item to the order, automatically changes it to the core company. That's one of the ways to make that happen. You can specify when it's time to reorder. Maybe when I get down to 50, I want to order 150 more. What price I want to pay for it. We'll talk about that when we create a PO in a little bit. We'll let you know how many on order and back order you have and what dates to expect them as well. Your operators can see this during order entry. Emails can see it, like the substitution email. PO creations based on that. We know we've got 11 coming, so that would be included in the count that you have in stock. So you really have 31 plus this 10, 41, either in stock or on its way. We're still below the 50, so it's time to order more, but that's part of the calculation. Channergy will store either a standard cost, which is for cost of goods sold, cost of goods in stock, etc. So it's just a flat rate that you assign, and or an average cost. And that's a weighted average that we determine as you receive inventory. So if you get 100 at $1, your average is $1. If you get another 100 at $2, your average is $1.50. And then, of course, as you sell off the $1 ones, it creeps back up towards the $2 mark. Channergy also works with accounting packages, the most common one being QuickBooks, but we do others. The QuickBooks export includes sales, so we'll push out the items sold, the amount they sold for, what quantities, what invoice number it went out on, the sales tax, and the shipping. We'll also create an accounts payable, what we push out. So we'll push the vendor out, the amount that you owe them. We'll create the vendor if they're already in QuickBooks, And that way your accountant or bookkeeper has everything they need to cut checks, run reports, etc. But all that plus a lot more information is in Channergy. So you can run very detailed reports in here, like how much you sold on a given channel or of a different product, etc. If you sell kits, products made up of other products, we call those assemblies. So if this is a kit item with a price, it can be made up of items in your inventory that are built on the fly. So in other words, maybe we take one of these, and it's also made up of, say, maybe 2 of these, etc. And for each one, you can either use the current price and add it to it. So whatever the price is of this, it will add up to, on top of that $3.99. Or you can put a flat price, or you can just zero it out and it won't add to it. You can do that for each of the 4 price levels that we have. You can put a discount on it. As you're building it, we'll tell you how much it costs you to make it, and then you can figure out what you want to charge for it on the total charge for the kit. And then check this box to make this kit. If you don't check this, when this gets added to an order, these just get added as separate items, which is a nice feature. Maybe you want to do that for free gifts or accessories that you automatically add, or maybe it's for box and packing materials. You can have it added that way. And those, by the way, can be hidden on the invoice or the packing list, but it's useful for pick lists and for other reports. But when you check this box, what happens is when you add this product to the order, these show indented underneath it, so you know that they're kit items. And they can be changed. You can delete them, you can change them. And then you can also hide them or show them on the screen and on reports. So you would typically show them on, say, a pick list or a work order, but hide them on the packing list or the invoice going to the customer or the email. This is for a kit built on the fly. So it would be the total available of this would be determined on the least number of these. So if you have 1 of these and 200 of these, you still only have 1 to sell, because once you sell that 1, it's 0. You can sell the kit beyond that if you want to. It'll just back order those individual items. For kits that you build and have on the shelf, you wouldn't use assemblies. You would just create those as separate products. These are for on the fly, so you could do either one or both. We saw suppliers already, attachments we saw at order entry, but just to visit it again, you can have images and they'll show up right up in the interface. So I'll just add this for fun. And you can have anything else you want, Word docs, PDF docs, web pages, etc., and those will all open up in their native program. And for those of you who sell automobiles, you can indicate, or automobile parts, you can indicate year, make, model, etc. And you can also identify that at the customer level like we saw. So that's how a product exists in Channergy.